Okay, good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm really glad to be here with you. I'm sorry for my voice because I'm still on my sick leave actually, and as you can see, I'm at home. But still, I hope that we will have a productive meeting. So I'll switch off my video for now so that we can focus on the presentation. And if you have any questions, suggestions, please don't hesitate to write. And our chat room can be used also for interactive activities. So this year, as usual, we have a new topic. English as a second language, hard skills for teachers, soft skills for students. Why did we decide to focus on this topic and what does it really mean? Let's see. We started thinking about the challenges in education today. So what challenges do bother you most of all nowadays? Please write your comments in the chat. What are the major challenges for you nowadays? Any ideas? You can type just keywords, that's all right. Unfortunately, we cannot really talk to each other. Well, I don't see any answers in the chat, so I will talk about my suggestions for our major challenges nowadays. Well, I would divide them into two categories: needs and opportunities, and global issues which we face. So as for needs and opportunities, definitely new tech, because nowadays kids have access to basically anything. YouTube, blogs, whatever you want, online education. So to be still useful, we need to move faster, of course. Then new jobs that will require new kinds of specialists. Global markets, which require a lot of knowledge of foreign languages, and it should be working knowledge, it should be functional. And of course, inclusive policies. I'm pretty sure that many of you have come across this, that there might be very different children in one classroom, and you have to teach all of them up to a particular level. And of course, global issues, first and foremost, health, because we have all experienced online learning in spring and during the summer due to health issues which are now global. Then also there is still poverty and war in many countries, which leads to migration, and it means that in some classrooms there are kids who don't really know their own language. Well, probably they know the spoken language but not the written. Then they cannot really speak our language or any other foreign language. So of course it's not easy to teach them. And of course, as a result, there is inequality and discrimination, and of course we should work on it in our classrooms to eliminate these problems. So how exactly are we going to fight these problems and face new needs and opportunities? We should start with building necessary skills for both teachers and students. So we'd like to speak about this difference between hard and soft skills. Can you give me any examples of hard skills, please? I can see that there are quite many people, 20 people, so please give your ideas in the chat room. What are examples of hard skills? So somebody is saying hello in the chat room, but nobody's giving me any ideas on hard and soft skills. Well, what do you think? For example, knowing a language, is it a hard skill or a soft skill? how well we speak a foreign language. What kind of skill is it? Any ideas? Soft skill, there is one opinion. Okay, any other ideas? Well, it's an interesting issue actually. So the point is that, just a sec. So hard skills are teachable skills that are easy to, well, more or less easy to quantify. So some people say that proficiency in a foreign language can be measured. So it can be considered a hard skill. But on the other hand, of course, communication skills are soft skills. And I encircle them here in green because I'd like to pay special attention to this. These are skills that we use in our work and skills which we can teach other people. And of course, how they speak foreign languages can be a kind of soft skill. It's not so much about their fluency as about their ability to convey ideas. But for us, of course, it's a hard skill because it's our profession. Also, hard skills are things for which you can get degrees, certificates, which can be measured in some objective points like typing speed, how many symbols you can type a minute, ability to operate certain machines, knowing certain programming languages, and so on. And soft skills are more interpersonal. They're about communication, flexibility, leadership skills, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I would agree that in our case, it's not so easy sometimes. So let's take a look. Here in the cloud, you can see some skills which are necessary for the teacher. Let's decide which of them are hard, actually professional and measurable, and which are soft. So take a moment to think about it. And see if there are any skills which you would probably put into both categories. That might happen. Well, let's see. So generally we would place them like this. Lesson planning, managing resources, giving instructions, error correction, and understanding linguistic concepts, so our professional terminology, they are of course all hard skills. These are things we learn at universities, and then we're tested on them again at universities, and then we use them in our everyday work. On the other hand, there are soft skills which are necessary for us, such as building rapport with our students, teamwork. And when we speak about teamwork, it's not just being part of a team, because of course we are part of the team of teachers and administration at school, but also teaching our students teamwork and being part of a team. Then building motivation, adaptability, leadership, and of course critical thinking. But if you look closely at this list, you will probably notice that actually some of these, although they're not so easy to measure, are actually necessary professional skills for a teacher. For example, building rapport. It's useful in all jobs, but in some you can probably somehow get by without it. Yeah, being a teacher, you have to do it. You have to build rapport with your students, with their parents, colleagues, administration, and so on and so forth. So your life is a whole network of relationships with people. And I would like to consider the following problem. Very often we say, I need a worksheet on a particular topic. Well, let's say our students do not understand present perfect continuous. So what do we do about it? We either look for one or we create one tailored to our students' needs. But anyway, there are several components which will influence how exactly you choose or create this worksheet or other teaching materials. So what kind of things do you need to create or find the right appropriate worksheet? Could you give me some ideas, please? Which skills will help us to create right materials? Well, if we analyze this problem, we will probably decide that to find the right materials, we definitely need subject knowledge. We need to know ourselves perfectly how it all works, and we should check the material if we find it somewhere on the internet for mistakes or other discrepancies. Of course, we need to know how to manage resources, how to devise them, how to print them so that they are comfortable to use and convenient for you as a teacher to check afterwards. And definitely it all doesn't work if we do not apply critical thinking. Basically, it's everywhere. It's in how we use our subject knowledge. It's in how we manage the resources. It's in how we create new resources. So while subject knowledge and managing resources are teachers' hard skills, and critical thinking is a soft skill which is necessary for everybody, we can say that our hard skills do not really work without this soft skill. So basically, for a teacher, all skills are hard skills and all are part of our profession. And I would like to take a look at some case studies because of that. So we'll start with knowing the subject. So what does it mean for us? Of course, it means some kind of proficiency, but proficiency in what? What exactly should we know? Please write your comments in the chat. What exactly is our subject? What should we know? Sorry. So there are some prompts for you on the slide. There are basically two types of proficiency for a language teacher. Of course, we should know the language itself and be fluent in it, so we should be able to listen and read, understand, speak and write in this language, and generally use it fluently and freely. But on the other hand, it's our job to know how the language is structured, which levels are included. We need to know certain terminology, and we should be able to explain this terminology to other people who are not professional in it. We also should explain why it's important to know such things. So I would say that there are two types of proficiency for us. It's language proficiency, which is sometimes called linguistic proficiency, and proficiency in linguistics as a science, as a scientific discipline. So as for language proficiency, which level should we reach? That's actually quite simple because there is a federal document which says that upon completing high school, our students should have the level which is, in European terms, is B2. Yeah, because it's above the threshold. So, and of course, we should be at least one level above our students. So that would make C1 or C2 for teachers. How can we check our level? Of course, there are multiple exams. A great choice, really, of international exams in English. I would say that Cambridge exams are the most academic, so probably they're the most suitable for teachers. And of course, they are expensive, so we do not all have to take them, although it would be useful, but at least we can go to the Cambridge Assessment website and do some demo versions and see how many points we can score. So that will give, well, a pretty good picture of your knowledge of the language. And as for proficiency in linguistics, that would include understanding how the language works, understanding the language proficiency framework. So that's where this European framework comes in. We should have a very clear idea of what's included in each level of language proficiency, which skills we should evaluate in our students and how exactly we should assess them. But of course, you cannot demand from your 10-year-old students that they know everything at C1 level, because actually there are even no exams for children at this level. Children's exams stop at B2. Of course, we should know terminology, and what's probably most important here is explaining and practicing things in appropriate ways, appropriate to the age and level of ability and needs of our students. So how does it work in real life? Let's consider an example. And I would like to know that the examples are taken from British Council booklets. There are lots of useful materials for teachers, and they're very practical. They include these cases where you read the situation, analyze it, and then there are some suggestions for you from the British Council specialists. So, for example, this one. Sarah is a new English teacher. She has made a worksheet for her 11 to 12-year-old learners. And of course, there is some room for improvement. So please take a look and think, what's not exactly perfect about this worksheet? You can write your comments in the chat as usual. And then we will discuss. And please pay attention to the text and the questions and even to what this worksheet looks like. How convenient it is to use. Well, if we look carefully, we will notice, first of all, and it's easy to notice because the questions are all in different types. So we can easily see that there are mistakes or misprints. Like the very first question, how old is John? John should be spelled with a capital letter, of course, and it's not here. So, of course, we need to proofread for mistakes and misprints. And if we look at the text itself, we might notice that some words or phrases are too difficult for 11-year-old kids. For example, we can read that John attends a school. He's a keen sportsman, and his ambition is to work in international law. So even if you have 5 or 6 hours of English in your school, and your kids know almost everything at the age of 12, this text would sound quite strange to them. Why? Because it's not very realistic or relatable. So if we are speaking about kids with 3 hours of English, the text is too difficult. And also it's quite strange that an 8-year-old is thinking about such things as international law. So if your kids have more hours from 4 to 6, of course they would be interested in more complicated topics than an 8-year-old attending school. So no matter what kind of audience we choose, this text doesn't really work and it's not really relatable for learners. Then, there are no clear instructions. Of course, for a teacher it's obvious that kids should read the text, then answer the questions, and then write about themselves. But look at it from the point of view of a child. There is some weird text, then there are questions. Should you read them? Should you answer them? If yes, in which form? Written or spoken? Then, the last task. Answer the questions, write about yourself. What should I write about myself? The answers or something else, something more creative? So it's not really clear, and the child will spend a lot of time thinking about what exactly he or she should do. Or if it's a lazy child, then no time will be spent and nothing will be actually done. Then, this worksheet is visually not very comfortable, not easy to read. Too many different fonts, too many letter sizes. Everything looks different, so you don't really know if is it one task, is it something else. So it's not clear. And finally, there is not enough space to write in. So all in all, of course, this worksheet needs quite a lot of correction. And this correction will come if we apply our critical thinking and our actual professional knowledge at the same time. Let's consider another example. So now we are not talking about worksheets, we are talking about an actual lesson. Lyle is another English teacher. He is teaching grammar, present simple, to 7-year-olds. Actually very young children. Then he starts the lesson by showing a picture of his sister. The children guess some information about her, then he tells them. For example, she goes to university, she wants to be a nurse, she loves animals, and so on. Then he holds up different pictures corresponding to the sentences, and children need to remember what was happening to his sister. And he drills every sentence for pronunciation and to help them remember. So until now it's all going great. Then he writes every sentence on the board. You can see it in the picture. Shows how it's different from the first person. Then he explains carefully how the verb is conjugated when using third person and explains this verb to conjugate. So if you know the verb conjugate, please write its meaning in the chat. So at this point, the children start moving around. They don't really pay much attention, so they're basically lost for him. And he has to finish the lesson. He asks 3 children to speak about their relatives using present simple. If they make mistakes, he corrects them, and they have to repeat the sentence. So what went wrong in this lesson, which started quite nicely? Let's analyze. The first part was almost perfect. Well, at least it was a very good version of this lesson for such young children. Because of course they like pictures, they like guessing, that's a game element. Then they hear the sentences in the third person of present simple. They try to remember these sentences, they drill pronunciation. Then Lyle writes the sentences so they see it. Yeah, it's a multisensory approach and it's very good for children. They can hear, see, and pronounce things. But then something goes wrong, because this teacher starts explaining complicated linguistic terms to very young children who cannot focus for such a long time. And as a result, he just loses their attention on the whole, and they cannot really continue working. Moreover, they don't really practice this construction. He makes them go straight to the free practice, and only some of them. So some children will try themselves, others will just sit and look, and probably they will forget everything which they have learned in the lesson. So what advice can we give to this teacher? Of course, we should think about the age of the learners. Children of such age learn holistically. And holistically means that they use the whole situation. They do not understand theoretical concepts, and they do not need to understand them. Remember how you, or probably your children, learned your native language being little. You learn it by repetition and by hearing it all around you. You do not need to understand how it works to speak it. This part, this understanding comes later, and you can discuss some theoretical points with older children, because probably some of them will want to go into linguistics, or because some of them have already worked out this more theoretical and analytical approach to learning. But of course, in primary school, it's not a very good idea to explain theory. And of course, you should avoid using very complicated terms, because children just feel confused and stop focusing. Provide more practice in different forms. We should remember that children need a lot of repetition and they love repetition. That's why we should, of course, use what Lyle used at first, multisensory approach, and also games. Many teachers think that grammar is a serious issue which requires serious practice, and games will not work here. But actually the point is that while playing games, children think that they're having fun. But if you organize this activity in the right way, You will make them repeat the same construction again and again until they learn it perfectly, and they will not get bored and they will not understand that they're actually working. But the result will be much better than when they just do exercise. And finally, correcting errors is important, but we should be careful with that. Because first of all, it can impair children's ability to communicate if they're afraid of making mistakes over and over again. And secondly, because when you focus on one construction, you should probably not pay so much attention to the others. So if they're missing articles in their speech and you're practicing tenses, maybe it's not so important. You can learn about articles later and practice it. Yeah? Then during some consolidation, of course, you will combine everything. Yeah? But when you're focusing on a new tense or on a new construction with your children, probably you should cut them some slack and not focus so much on every little mistake they make. And finally, case study number 3. I'm afraid that nowadays many of us have this problem. A teacher posted this comment on a forum that he never has time to do speaking because there are 50 learners in his classes at the same time. So a year ago, we would probably have said that it's a problem of some third world countries and we don't have it. We divide our classes into groups. But today, with new regulations, many classes are not divided because they cannot go to another classroom. Teachers come to kids to teach them. And yes, you might have a class of 30, 40, maybe even 50 learners at the same time, which is a problem, of course, for our subject. What can we do? Definitely what this teacher suggests, doing presentations in turns, is not efficient. You will never have so much time. And also, while one person is doing a presentation, the others are doing whatever they want, or they're terribly bored. So, some ideas. How can we help this teacher and ourselves? Of course, we should reduce work with the whole group and individual presentations. And instead, we should increase pair and group work and differentiated tasks. Now, of course, it's easier said than done. However, if you divide your students into the right groups, you will probably get better results. And of course, it won't be one kind of division all the time. So probably at some stages, you should divide them into different levels. Because when you have 25 students, even 25 in one classroom, they are all very different. So you can divide them into level groups and give them different tasks tailored to their abilities. Then, during the next iteration, you can mix them up and have groups with similar abilities, more or less, mixed level groups. And then you will do the next level of tasks, and so on, until every student in your classroom has tried all kinds of tasks, and you can see some clear progression. How can we look for errors and correct them? Of course, you cannot listen to every student if you have so many at the same time. So it probably would be better to monitor and collect information while they're doing work in pairs or groups. So you can just walk around, monitor them, make some notes, and later provide feedback on their errors. Yeah, you can actually create this whole task which will consist of their errors, which they will have to correct. And finally, in this situation, when classes are not divided, very often there are 2 or maybe even 3 teachers in the same classroom. So instead of just making one work and another sit in the back, you can combine your efforts. So you divide your group into 2 or 3 groups, and every teacher works with his or her part. In that way, it will be more efficient, and also you can swap your groups from time to time. So this will keep your students more alert. When they have a new teacher every lesson, they probably will try their best to show that they have actually learned something. So this might be also a very good teaching moment. So As you can see, of course, the situation is not ideal, but we can use it to our advantage. And when we were discussing all these things, how we can a presentation on your mail. Well, actually, when this meeting is over, you will get a link to the video, and there will be a presentation. Yeah. So if you don't get the link the same day, you can email me and I will send you the materials. So what conclusions can we make from these cases? How do we use our knowledge, our hard and soft skills to work properly? So basically, our fundamental knowledge set consists of knowing the language, understanding linguistics, understanding psychology, and that would include age psychology and group psychology. And finally, and this is an interesting point, methodology. It combines your knowledge from the previous three spheres, and also it's a separate kind of knowledge at the same time, because it includes very operational technologies, and it includes actually hard skills, which you need to work as a teacher. And to combine all these things properly, to make them work, what you need is the right set of cognitive skills. So cognitive skills are something which both we need and our students need, covering all subjects. So we have to develop their skills. And if you were part of our club the year before last, when we discussed content and language integrated learning, you probably know about HOTS and LOTS. So what kind of cognitive skills are HOTS and LOTS? Take a look at this picture and try to guess or maybe remember what it means. It shows some progression. Well, the thing is that HOTS are higher order thinking skills, and LOTS are lower order thinking skills. Lower and higher do not mean that you only need the higher ones. Actually, we need all of them, because they build one upon another. So we start with remembering, then we go through understanding things, applying them, analyzing, evaluating, and finally creating something new. And we cannot be really successful in anything without this whole range of skills. And it's important to understand that we cannot skip stages. So when we are trying to teach the language, we need to understand that our kids should go through this whole range, from remembering things to understanding them, applying, and so on, up until they can actually create something, their own written works, speeches, and so on. And going back to the question of inclusive education, we should understand that when we speak about adapted programs, special curriculums for children with disabilities, there is a certain ceiling which we can reach. So for kids with certain disabilities, probably applying will be the highest stage. And of course, we should consider it while planning our activities. At the same time, when we speak about healthy kids with normal development, we should go through all the stages. Now, I suggest we practice a little, take a look. So these are operations corresponding to higher or lower order skills. And also these are instructions. When we want to develop particular skills, we need to be careful with how we formulate our instructions for children, what exactly they have to do. So take a look and try to put these instructions from the most complicated, from the higher order skills, to the lower order skills, the simplest operations children can do during the lessons. Now, if you have any ideas, please type them in the chat. From the most difficult to the easiest operations here. let's see. Of course, the most complicated will be point B, where you have to plan and create things yourself. Then comes F, select, recommend, negotiate, or compare something. So that's the analytical part. Then E, that's also analytical, analyze, separate, or connect, or classify something. Then, somewhere in the middle, discuss, tell, show, describe things. So that's more about understanding them. Then comes read and circle or answer the questions. So that's more about looking for information. And finally, the easiest here is point C, name, point, find, and so on. And if you think about how we teach children, you will realize that actually, yeah, that's what we start with. First, we ask them to listen and repeat or point out some objects in the textbook. A bit later, they need to read and find something, or listen and find some information, and so on and so forth, until finally they can separately, independently analyze information, plan their work, and create something new. And to come to this result, we need to make them go through all the stages. And sometimes we have to go back, because we are working with more and more complicated concepts, and it's not so easy to understand them. Well, of course, we love diagrams. And I found one funny one, which is about what the perfect teacher should possess, what kind of skills. So here you can see that knowledge is actually separated from skills, because knowledge is more theoretical. And the creator of this diagram thinks that if you only have knowledge and hard skills, you become the robot teacher. So yeah, you are probably efficient, but not very warm, not very appealing to all kinds of students. If you have knowledge but only soft skills, then you are a so-called hippie teacher. So it works for some students, but some would probably need a stricter and more organized classroom. If you have only skills and no knowledge, you might be a potential teacher of English as a foreign language, but of course, without knowledge, there is nothing to teach. And finally, when you combine everything, subject knowledge, hard skills, and soft skills, you become the perfect teacher. And I do hope that we all will strive to become that. Well, because of that, there are certain areas for further research and discussion, which we will discuss in more detail during our next meetings. So, this will be the subject knowledge, language and linguistics, their connection, and what exactly we should convey to our students and what should be just part of our professional knowledge. Psychology and methodology, how exactly we should teach children of different ages and different kinds of groups. Skills development and assessment, that's not just about developing skills in our students, that's also about developing our own skills, what we can do and how we should assess ourselves. We'll speak about planning, courses, lessons, and activities, managing resources, as we have already mentioned today, managing activities, and that's connected closely with giving instructions, and correcting errors and providing useful feedback. And finally, of course, managing a new classroom with no group division or social distancing, or with students wearing masks, or when you have to teach online for some reason. So if you have any questions or suggestions, of course I will be happy to hear them. So please write letters or call, and we will tailor our future meetings according to your needs. So if you have any questions now, please ask them. We already had a question about presentations, so you will get a link to the video of this meeting and the presentation, and in case you don't get the information on your mail, then please write to me and I will send it to you. Any other questions or maybe suggestions for our future meetings? The next will be in October. No questions. The date, just a second. I'm guessing it will be in the 20th of October. But just a sec, I will check exactly. So our next club for English teachers will be on the 21st of October. 21st of October. And actually before that we will have a number of meetings about other things. So on the 2nd of October there will be a meeting about preparing for our contests and competitions. So I hope you will also join. We will discuss what exactly has changed in our contests for kids and actually for teachers as well, and how to prepare efficiently. And also we will have a series of seminars for teachers of foreign languages starting from the 7th of October. So please follow us on our website. Books or articles to be better prepared. Yeah, first of all, I would recommend British Council for teachers. So I will actually type it in our chat room. British Council Teaching English. And also Cambridge Assessment. So Cambridge Assessment, that's not only about international exams. There are actually a lot of free materials. And nowadays there are also tips for teachers for teaching in new conditions. There are articles on teaching online, and there are articles on teaching in the conditions which we have now, when we have a lot of students in one classroom, or the opposite situation when we have social distancing and you are not allowed to come into close contact with students. So I think everybody should go to these websites. They're really, really useful. And as for British Council, there are lots of games and activities which can actually be used in the classroom. They're all very realistic and they can be tailored to any kind of audience. Well, when you go to our website of City Methodological Center, you will see the information about our events. The information will be there this week. But if you want to get emails, please write to me and I will email you the information once again. Any other questions? So if there are no further questions, I will be expecting your emails if you need any additional information. And thank you very much for participating today. And I hope that next time we'll try to maybe talk more. If it's technically possible, we will actually try to speak. Yeah. So, and of course, if you have any suggestions for future topics, please write to me and they will be included, because it's quite flexible planning, so we can change things and talk about your actual problems. That's quite all right. Okay, thank you very much for being here and for your feedback. So I hope to see all of you on the 2nd of October again. Thank you and goodbye.